Weird science
is the revolution.
Action Comics number 1063, written by Jason Aaron, with art by John Timms, Rex Marcus, and Dave Sharp. I'm a real crumb bum.
I hit the wrong thing. I wanted to hit the ding, so I knew the time that. There you go, Eric. You're not a crumb bum. Keep going.
Okay.
You're a real crumb bum.
Oh, God.
I hit it
528.
I hit it by accident again. It's by
When
accident.
we jump into this issue, I thought we were going to expect something really cool because the finale of the previous issue was Superman going to the sanest man left on Earth during the Bizarro takeover, and that was the Joker. He's Bizarro Joker, so now he's the sanest man on Earth. I thought this could be really interesting, but when we jump into this issue, we realize that the Joker is just kind of standing around while Superman does Kryptonian meditation techniques to try to get the Bizarro out of his mind and, so we can shut down this magical system and Superman can take control and hopefully save the world and turn them back from Bizarros everywhere. And I'm telling you, the whole thing with the sanest man alive Joker, the Bizarro Joker, oh my God, Superman, you better hurry up because if you die in there, you die in the real world. But also, we got Bizarros out here, so I better carry your ass somehow into the back of a van and then drive you around to Metropolis. While the Bizarros chase us. The sanest man alive bit, does he, even when we get to the end, when Superman does save the day and you see the Joker turn back into the regular Joker, it's a really cool moment because he's on top of the Daily Planet building while Jimmy Olsen Bizarro and Lois Lane Bizarro are trying to break down the roof door right where the Joker is. I'm like, this could lead to some serious shit, but nothing comes of it. Like, when everybody turns back to the normal stuff, I expected them to be confronted with the Joker, then holy shit, no, you get nothing.
And there's a weird thing, and again, when this, why I say if, it will be collected, and when it's in whatever trade, when you get, it might work out better, but when you have that little bit between, you end up last issue where it is Superman saying, you know what, I'm going to have to, get a little team up, who am I going to get, and the big reveal, the cliffhanger, oh my God, Joker, the sanest man alive, it's Bizarro Joker, so instead of him being crazy, and here's the thing, a lot of people I found out this week, they forgot that concept. And so when they end up and you get the Joker in this, I think that they were thinking the Joker can't be affected as a Bizarro. Oh my God, he's a foot. But also the idea when you get into this, I didn't realize what was happening at first because this whole deal of, oh, we're in the mind. It's not the real world. They're trying to explain it a little, but not enough. And I just ended up when you finally get the lay of the land, I'm like, oh, so really none of this is really happening. And it threw me off. Yeah, he's trying to find Bizarro of the mind. But even then when you have the Joker trying to play therapist. And even then, you don't know what's going on to pull out pages later to see, okay, that's what you're doing. But the idea, do you see anybody in there? No, there's nobody.
No, everybody's gone.
You know the whole world? Yeah, I memorized it. I'm like, it's such a weird jump.
I like the idea of people talking, like Stephen King does it a lot with the memory warehouse, that safe space in your mind, you have everything collected. Exactly. And things like this. Superman in his mind has the world mind, like the memory mind, because in order to find Bizarro, he knows the entire world, every inch of it, and he's flying around inside of his mind, around the earth of the mind,
but
trying to find
Bizarro. But that's the thing, he's still in the mind, yeah, and that's what's weird.
But he's in his mind, and the earth of the mind gets destroyed. But even the point where every time that Bizarro lands a hit on Superman, because even though he's a tiny little action figure of a guy at the beginning of this whole thing, he still hits like a freight train. He's punching Superman
and because
through
he's
the
magic
of the mind.
But that's the problem.
Exactly.
The idea of this, I think that maybe the better start, because we end up at the end of last. Remember, he's going to Gotham. Oh my God, the Joker. Ooh, it's going to be a team up, and that's always cool. You've had it before. Whether it's a team up like this or just a villain, it's neat to see Superman go after the biggest villain of Batman and how Joker treats it, because Joker does what he does because of Batman. Well, here's the light and how he goes. But when you go into this, maybe you should have started right away with the Joker strapping Superman down and saying, I'm glad you trust me. Hey, we're going to go in the mind. Let's see this. But when you started out, like you said, when you're even talking about it, but even me thinking about it, I keep saying like, oh man, he's trying to get this. Oh, it's of the mind. Oh, he punched him through to the, oh, it's of the mind. Like, it doesn't feel like it's really meaning much.
It's all of the mind.
Yeah.
And even when they try to tell you how big things are, like Superman was killed by Bizarro 89 times that day. They try to make like this big freaking moment where Superman felt his own death of the mind 89 times as Bizarro of the mind is getting more powerful with each death. But then a few pages later, they continue on like the 89 was a big deal, but now I killed him 2 more times. I'm like, why would you even go to that point? And then one more time.
I want it to be 78, Eric, not 89. That's a Batman number. And so when they're doing this, though, you get a disconnect again at points, I think, where you sit there and think, oh, they're fighting for the control of his mind. But that even gets lost in the translations of it because of this, Mindscape memory Earth. And it took a little bit explanation, and it still just didn't feel right. And I think a lot of people might have got confused by it, actually, from hearing some people and even reviewers, which they're often confused there. But the idea where it is just for control of the mind, when you end up having Superman finally come out of it, and we see the Joker, then it starts to, at least you kind of get the lay of the land, you get a grip on it, but we're already 6-7 pages in, and then the real threat isn't that. It's, oh shit, all these Bizarro people are trying to bust in. Superman goes back in the mind.
28 days later.
Yeah, exactly. So there's the real threat, and then you go back, get punched through the earth, but it's of the mind, and then wakes up again, and now we're in an ice cream truck. I mean, it's one of my Transformers going on here. And again, the big threat, there's a bunch of Bizarro, deal. It's World War Bizarro. They're trying to take him, so the Joker's trying to protect him. And that is a fun little play of, hey, you have me, I'm going to protect you. Ooh, that doesn't sound good when I say it out loud to myself or whatever. But you never really get any bit where I think you're like, oh man, that's cool. Or, oh man, wow moment. Because when you do finally get to what it seems Jason Aaron's getting to, we're just told. A lot of this is kind of just told. Like you said, even the idea of he was killed 89 times. It's just a spread page, and it really doesn't matter because it's of the mind. Then you end up with all this stuff, and I just ended up shaking my head that I think this was a really poorly thought out presentation. Maybe the story itself is okay. The presentation of it and how it is presented to the reader, I think, was way off. And it just it ends up not being that good.
I think the first 2 issues were pretty interesting for the idea of Bizarro using magic to take over the world. After, even killing a bunch of sorcerers and stealing their power on the planet Xerox. You have all of these interesting, even the idea of Bizarro World being missing in the multiverse ever since that was recreated. You get nothing of that here until Bizarro of the Mind is trying to recreate Superman's Earth of the Mind into a Bizarro World of the Mind. And the thing that we actually have here is Bizarro becoming stronger, being able to take over the body and mind of Superman. And the way that we save the day is the Bizarro Joker, the sanest man alive, talks about the hope and the light until the Superman is able to break through because he's the Superman. I'm like, that is very underwhelming.
It is very underwhelming.
Entire world being taken over by the Joker by Bizarro.
Yeah.
But you have this whole thing that you barely get to see the ramifications of with the rest of the heroes. You had it previously in the second issue. You talked about people like Dr. Fate getting taken over and other things like that. I want to see more of this, but we spend the entire issue of the mind where, for the most part, there's no consequences. And once you're able to take back your own mind and break the spell of the Bizarro, everything else just reverses itself as well, because once Bizarro gets into the mind of Superman, Superman in turn is able to get into the mind of Bizarro and be able to untangle all those ties and knots of the spell that Bizarro cast, and we're good now.
Yeah, and then was, kind of dead, kind of dormant inside still, and then when Joker gives the best speech ever, people were laughing in the Slack. I think Simon brought it up. It is like Tenacious D. This is the best song ever. But it's not that song. It's just a tribute. That's what it kind of feels like. You don't get it.
I get Jason Aaron's thing in this, because if you need to write the most inspiring speech of all time through a Bizarro Joker, right? How do you do that where people aren't going to criticize the idea of what you do? How inspiring can it be? So you talk about
don't do that,
how inspiring it is, and then you just say, this is what it was, because that should be hard to write.
But again, that would be, and I agree if it was. But what I wanted, and we'll
especially for a 3-issue mini arc,
when he goes to do it, what I did kind of need though, and there's a couple examples that I could think of. Remember when they did that presentation in Community, when they're like they're rowing the boat and people are aghast and then they're laughing. It was in the 1 season of Community. What I needed here was when you have him, it was the most inspiring thing, and then you kind of cut back in and he's like, and then there was a guy from Nantucket, and then you go back out, like, make it kind of fun. Something it wasn't. And that was.
And today is our Independence Day. You did it, Bill Pullman Joker.
It's that, or it's in the opposite deal. It's John Belushi in all the Animal House, where they're like, just let him go. When nothing made sense, like, he's on a roll, let him go. But in that, like, you don't get that, and that's the end of it. And what you're saying about not ever finding out the magic, what that meant, what I wanted, and they almost do it. He does it a little bit, but, I mean, poor Bizarro doesn't have his family, his planet, and Superman sees that, but they don't do anything. Also, Superman then realizes, oh my God, and he says to Bizarro at the one point, come on, you are like me. Yeah, you're the opposite, but we're connected that way. And then starts kind of saying the stuff that Bizarro's upset about. You're kind of the bad Superman. You're the dumb Superman. You're the and I wanted Superman to realize, actually, oh my God, like I never thought of how they react to you because, I'm pretty cool and I'm great, but they actually think everything's the opposite then. So they don't like you, think you're a joke because of it. And you're not. I actually just wanted that. And whether or not it would have been hokey of them actually of the mind even, kind of coming to terms about, I get it now. Superman especially, I get what's going on here. I get you just want some respect. You just want to maybe even be left alone at points. But with that opposite talk, like all that is such bullshit that everybody makes fun of you. You don't even do that.
Even a cosmic joke at this point where his home has been taken away. Nobody will help him. They just laugh at him like all the assholes in Metropolis for some reason, even Bibbo. But I just needed to have that last issue, or maybe even this issue. I don't know how you cram it in as much as I want for this third and final issue, but Superman defeats Bizarro. He saves the world, but him being Superman, I still would want him to find what happened to Bizarro world in the multiverse.
This is what I'm
that
saying.
Seems like a big deal.
Like, this would have been to me where Superman, he's trying to stop this because, it looks like Bizarro's evil, but he knows he isn't. He knows he's always kind of confused backwards. But when he ends up seeing this, I really wanted to go because Superman, I think, even in this, he's always telling Bizarro, come on, man, we're like each other. Yeah, you're opposite, but look, try to be more like me. And I think that this could have been the really cool thing. Again, it kind of goes back to
it for your clone, Superman. This Bizarro ain't listening.
My whole Christos Gage, flowers for Bizarro thing. You had feels because when you do realize what happened, and he's always frustrated, even when he's talking. We don't understand it, for Christ's sake. We hate the Bizarro talk. So, half the time when he's talking, people are like, okay, is that opposite of this or whatever? And he gets frustrated. But the big thing is he has no home. And why isn't that just the deal? Because that's all he really wants. But he does things, and Superman could have come to the play of, I'll help you. Like, you don't have to steal my home. We'll find yours. But instead, you end up having the destruction of the sun to weaken Superman, kill him more and more times.
Of the mind.
Yeah, of the mind. Kill him more and more times. Again, it starts getting wonky of the mind. It was driving me nuts. Yeah. And then in the meantime, Bizarro does take over. But there's the Joker to talk him down, but also that's inspiring Superman inside because you get that play too. Why am you talking to me? I'm not just talking to you. Oh no, that's
talking to the guy
that's
inside.
The big twist. And there was clever moments, especially in that first issue. This didn't feel very clever. It felt like, oh crap, I gotta end this now? Like, I gotta figure it out.
The most clever thing I could think of is, you have Bizarro of the mind. The remnant that's left of him, his consciousness after that spell that he cast that dissipated his entire being. You have a sliver of him left inside Superman's mind at the end of this whole thing, to the point where you can say that if Bizarro comes back, this might have ramifications by the end where he will be inside Superman's mind and will try to fight to get back out.
I also
like Pandora's box of stupid.
I also like when Superman starts punching himself a la Fight Club. Like, you like that? Though, here's the other thing, too, in this, where it's a Bizarro story. Am I right? It's a Bizarro story.
Yeah, you got it.
The feels that I wanted from Superman and Bizarro, you actually get from Joker and Superman, because that's almost what I want, because then when it's at the end, it's hokey. Like, the idea of the Joker, like, oh, man, Joker, I just realized if we save everyone, everybody forgets, including you. And he's like, I knew that all along. Give me a hug, my man. And at the end, I wanted those feels for Bizarro and Superman, not the Joker and Superman. And so it's kind of funny when he spray paints on the deal. But you got no feels for Bizarro
by the end of this because it's just like 3 and done, and we have to move on. So there's not enough time to even have any feels for poor old Bizarro.
Like you said, you don't ever really get the scope, really, because you just are telling now a Joker deal and of the mind. The of the mind thing, I think, was a big, big mistake. I understand what they're doing, but it just always keeps, it's of the mind, it's of the mind. And so at the end, when you do have, Joker, it's kind of a nice moment where Superman has to thank him. But even then, there's only one time when Superman says, oh, I think this is a bad idea. And then kind of he doesn't have any other options, so they do it. But it's sane Joker. I don't know. He seems annoying. Sane Joker seems too nice. He's like one of those guys. I think he's up to something. But yeah, at the end, it's just like, yeah, I knew. And then you have some, touching moment. And then you just go back to, Stupid Lois with that "Marry Me, Man of Steel." Remember I said I didn't like that at the beginning. We have Of the Mind. We also have Bizarro stuff. Like, nothing really happened. And at the end, when people, it really is, nothing mattered. Nothing really mattered in this. And it ends up being very obvious that this was just a placeholder until Joshua Williamson could get something going for his deal. And it was more
strong.
than that. I mean, we kind of knew what it was anyway, but it was good. And it looked like Jason Aaron coming over like he's doing in Batman Offworld. He's actually coming in and kind of finding some neat things to tweak or to show. And I think the actual story that he had in his head was not real big and might have been better as like a oversized annual, like one annual issue or something, because 3 issues it did not make. But what would you give it?
Ultimately, even with my disappointments in this for how strong the art was throughout and the ramifications, which could be back, like somebody could come back to the story and really write a cool story. It's Bizarro the Mind coming back out. Like I said, a Pandora's box is stupid. I like the idea. It's just, this is a big misstep overall. I want to give it a 6 out of 10 still, and that's a very optimistic. I could go low, but I want to be positive about a story that I enjoyed for the most part until this issue.
I think it's a 6. The art's really good, and there are some moments. It's just that the overall setup to get to this and then what this was disappointing. But overall, the whole story is like a 6.57. It's okay. I mean, it wasn't the worst thing we've read, and it's still not the worst thing we read this week. It just is more disappointing because it did seem to have some potential, and some of the things set up. I know that you wanted to know more about the Bizarro world. You wanted to know more. Like, even that Superman isn't at this point
I'm over here nodding my head yes. I'm on a podcast. I'm nodding my head yes.
This was the thing, yes. And so afterwards, even then, you would hope that Superman would at least say, we might not get to it now, but say, I'm going to have to figure this out for Bizarro. Because now people don't even know. They think he might be dead. They don't know. It's kind of inside Superman in a non-sexy way, possibly. But maybe he should go and look for Bizarro World and what's going on in the overall multiverse. This might mean bigger things even.
Get a hold of the Justice League Incarnate.
Yeah,
Find out
exactly.
this shit.
Weird science is the revolution.